Good morning. How are you guys today? Good. This is probably one of the only times that he will say that I'm prompt is when I have to do this stuff. I'm always 5 minutes late. Well, I wanted to first welcome you guys. Nothing like showing up on a Monday morning. We were talking before to eat some meatloaf. So thank you for coming. My name is Desilet. I'm a sports nutritionist, and I specialize in nutrition for firefighters. This is my husband, Phil. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Phil Desilet. I'm a captain with Boise Fire Department, Local 149. And she invited me to come and just talk about how we implement this stuff in the department. More so in my station, not department-wide. So I'll have a little part of this and just how we do it. But yeah, she's the brains behind the operation. I'm just kind of how we do it. So yeah, thanks for coming. I'm gonna slip out and let her kind of continue, and we'll meet up with you guys in a bit.
Awesome. A little bit about me. Like I said, I'm a sports nutritionist, and I specialize in exercise related nutrition, but specifically for the fire service. So this is my family. This was back in November, hence the mustache. No shave November. So the whole reason that I do this is for these guys, but also all of the families in all of Boise Fire and our surrounding departments that I know. I know the children, I know the spouses, and I know what the fire service does to you guys. I know. I've been in it as a spouse for 18 years, and I've seen the transition of my husband, I've seen the transition of our friends, and here's why I do what I do. It's for those three little people right there, so that when this guy retires, he's healthy enough to be able to walk his girls down the aisle. He's healthy enough to play football with his grandkids, so that when we retire, because we have the luxury of retiring early as a fire family, you guys also have this luxury, that retirement is long and happy and healthy, because you give a lot of yourself to this line of work. It becomes part of your life. So how can you best support yourself? How can you support your family? And vice versa, how can your family support you so that you do have a long and happy and healthy retirement? That is what's important to me. That's what drives me every day. So I've taken on this passion. I love fitness and nutrition, and then having the perspective of being a support staff for the fire service, there was this glaring opportunity that said, hey, somebody needs to step up and say, how we're doing things currently is not how we should be doing things. So I hope that speaks to you. Anybody ever thought this? Raise your hand. I need to eat better. Awesome. I think this is universal for most of us. We say, gosh, I just need to eat better. And it might come at different points in our life. But I want to share the story of a firefighter I know. His name's Mike. And Mike is actually retired now, but not by choice. So Mike, when he was younger, he was a football player. He was an active guy. And then after high school, he did some blue collar work. He was a laborer, and then he found the fire service, and it gave him purpose. It's like, yes, I get to work alongside my brothers and sisters. I love this line of work. I'm a servant at heart. I get to serve my community, and I get to have fun while I'm doing it. So he committed himself to a life in the fire service. But what happens over life? Every year, he'd pack on a couple extra pounds. He wouldn't exercise as much, because life gets busy and there's kids and, we got training and I gotta take this class, this online class. And so 10, 15 years later, Mike's not in a good place. Mike's actually really, really unhealthy. So unhealthy that he has to have double knee replacement surgery because he struggles to walk. He struggles to do his job, so he's taken off the line, and he has to have this surgery. And because Mike, unfortunately, over the course of his career, has not done a good job of taking care of himself, body, mind, and soul, he's really struggling after surgery. So he doesn't recover the way that his doctor was expecting. And so he doesn't get put back on the line. And because he's, put in his time, he's close to retirement, he has to retire early because he literally cannot get clear to do his job. So now you have a guy that is heavier than he wants to be, can't move the way that he wants to, doesn't feel good in his body, and now you've taken away part of his identity. He's not a firefighter anymore. How does he define himself? Well, I've watched Mike struggle over the last couple years since he's been medically retired. And it's hard for him. As someone who loves and cares for him, it's hard to see what this is doing to himself, what this is doing to his family, his relationships, his friendships. And I talk about this not because I think food would fix what's going on, but I think it's important to recognize that there's two ways you can think about this. You can either actively be maintaining your health, or what we see in America, and you see in your communities and in the patients that you serve, if you're not actively pursuing health, then you're slowly, passively degrading. So I'm here to challenge you to take an active role in your health and understand that food is a vital, vital component of that. So let's take some action. So I'd like to introduce this idea of functional nutrition. Has anybody heard of functional nutrition before? Okay, one hand. How about functional fitness? You guys heard of functional fitness? Okay, a lot more people have heard of functional fitness. So let me connect to that. So in functional fitness, there are some basic movements that every human body needs to know how to do well. For example, everyone needs to know how to squat. Why? Because we use toilets, right? This is a functional movement. And everyone needs to know how to deadlift, right? We got to hinge correctly, keep our back safe, keep our core engaged, because at some point you're going to have to pick something up off the ground, even if it is a pin. And everyone needs to be able to move well overhead, push something overhead, because you might have to reach something off of a top shelf. And it is incredibly true for the work that you guys do. You have to be able to move well. So how does this connect to functional nutrition? Well, if functional movement, functional fitness, is designed to help your body move well, function well, functional nutrition is no different. How do you eat in a way that helps your body function well? Now, I will say there's lots of nutritional dogmas out there, lots of philosophies about how you should eat. And I am nutritionally agnostic. So I don't necessarily subscribe to one specific style of eating, because I look around the room here, and for as many people as there are that many plus more ways to approach eating. But there are some foundational things that every single body needs in order to function well, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I want you to get this idea of this is good, this is bad approach to food, because just show of hands, if I said donuts, good or bad? Right? We have this idea, okay, donuts are bad. Steamed broccoli, good, right? I'm here to say I can make a case for any food that you need to eat. I could give you a time and a place that a donut would be appropriate. Like, yes, I like her already. And I could also make a case where steamed broccoli would be the best choice. And the power in what this is first and foremost understanding food, because I think this is missing. A lot of us didn't really get this. I'm a product of the 80s, so I was told fat is bad. Everything in our house was no fat, low fat. So we have these ideas of what we should be eating, and I'm going to challenge you a little bit today to thinking, instead of making blanketed statements, to really hone in on what's right for you. Because the way that you squat, everybody needs to squat, but the way that you squat is probably appropriate for your anatomy, and maybe some muscle imbalances, or you have some impaired movement, so your squat looks different from your neighbor's. Just like your food might look slightly different from your neighbor's, okay? So no longer is this about what's good versus bad. Now we're focused on 3 principles. First one, eat for health. We have to be eating for our health because already you guys have the cards stacked against you. You have to protect your health, otherwise it's that passive, slow degradation, right? You have to eat for life because life happens. And I'm not talking about life today, I'm talking about life throughout the course of your journey. And life at home versus life on duty. Those might look different. And then for real, because, and I put a burger and a milkshake on there on purpose, because we're human. And part of food, like if I didn't enjoy food, I would not be as passionate about this as I am. So I love food. And I imagine that you guys want to eat good food, because how many of you have been on a diet where it's like, that food was disgusting, don't ever make me eat it again? As a former bodybuilding competitor, grilled tilapia with, I don't care how much mustard you put on that, is disgusting. So if you're not going to enjoy it, there's a good chance that you won't eat it. So now it really comes down to two things. Will it help me? And do I like it? So it's not good or bad. Will it help me? And do I like it? And you might be wondering, well, how do I know if it's going to help me? We're going to talk about that. And do I like it? That's up to you to decide. That's where that variation comes into play. So sometimes we get backed into a corner and we don't always get to eat what we want, but it's what we need. And then we find that beautiful spot where it's like, oh, this is totally what I need right now. This is going to help me, and I really like it. Like, yes, bring on the cheesecake or the ice cream or the donuts. So we're going to change our perspective a little bit. So what I would really like to have you start thinking is when we're thinking about food, it usually hangs out in the back of our head until our stomach is like, feed me. And then it's like, I got to eat right now. It becomes an emergency. First and foremost, I'm here to remind you that being hungry is not an emergency, right? We don't call 911 for that. So allow yourself just a moment to bring your brain back to functioning instead of being hijacked by your stomach. And then ask yourself, what do I need right now? And what sounds good? And find something in the middle there. But first and foremost is, what do I need right now? So we're going to change our perspective and understand that there is a time and a place for everything. So maybe on Sunday afternoon when, maybe it's a slow day at the station and you're relaxed and maybe watching a ball game, that might not be the time to have a platter of nachos. But if you've been drilling all day, sweating through your turnouts, or you've had a bunch of calls, or you've been on a long overhaul, and you're just exhausted, and you know that your energy is just down in the toilet, that might be the time. It's like, hey, fellas, we're going to stop. We got to get some donuts. Or I need a foot-long sandwich. So we're going to change our perspective a little bit. So this is not any news to you guys. There's a lot of health risks that are associated with the fire service. This is why I start with eating for health. We have to create this solid foundation that you are actively protecting your health. So just like you're starting new practices or you've learned new habits of, making sure that, you've got 2 sets of turnouts, right? So one gets cleaned after overhaul and you have a clean pair that you can wear. So you're trying to do your part to protect yourself from a lot of the toxins that you're exposed to. Well, I'm here to say some of those toxins are actually in the food that you put in your body. So what do we see in the fire service? Well, because you have exposure to toxins, because there's typically some sedentary lifestyle behaviors, because there's a lot of stress, either intentional or unintentional, with the call volume and interrupted sleep, all of these things have a negative impact on your body. So what do we see as an outcome of this? Well, we're seeing a big rise in behavioral health, and I'm here to say some of it is some of those toxins and the stress that you're exposed to. Cancer is a very real thing, and either the food that you're eating is helping your body fight that, or it's not. Depression is a very real thing, particularly in the fire service, and the food that you eat is either helping to fight that, or it's not. The stuff that you guys know about, diabetes, heart disease, hormone dysfunction, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, poor sleep, even when you're not on shift, and thyroid dysfunction. All of these things are in this tangled web that are working against you. So I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to give you a real picture that if you're not intentionally trying to keep yourself healthy, you're fighting a tough battle, a really tough battle. So really what it comes down to is your food choices matter. So the same intention that you put into making sure that your gear is all in check, that you have all of the equipment that you need. When you show up in the morning and you do a rig check, or you're doing inventory, and you have all of that stuff that you need to do your job well, we need to start putting some of that intention into the food that we eat. Actively making choices. How many of you, just a show of hands, and I won't scold you if you don't raise your hand, how many of you actually bring food with you to the station? Good, good. I would actually argue that maybe this audience, because this is a health and safety symposium, that you're a little more proactive. But do you guys know people in your own department that's like, yeah, they don't ever bring food, right? Yeah. So part of this is also learning to start those conversations, to maybe set an example, like, hey, this is how we do things. So when you think about your body as a tool, right, and being well equipped, food is one of the tools that you can use to keep your body healthy and functioning well. So think about like when you go to force a door, there's a right tool for it, and there's a lot of wrong tools. Or if you're responding to a medical, depending on what that medical is, there's tools that you need in your EMS bag, and then there's a lot of other tools that don't belong in the EMS bag, right? So it's knowing the right tool for the right purpose. So really what it comes down to is understanding food choices and know that they matter. So selecting the right tool for what it is that you need. So I like this quote, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, because I want you to think about how often do you actually go to the doctor over the course of a year? Once, maybe twice. You know, if you have some health stuff that you're managing, maybe 4 times a year, but not that often. Okay, so let's say in the course of a month, you see your doctor 0 times. How often do you exercise? In a week, I guess I should clarify. Anybody want to show me like fingers? I see a 5, 5, maybe 3, you know, that's okay. So you're exercising maybe 5 times a week or maybe 3 times a week. How often are you eating? Maybe it's 3 times a day. Maybe it's 5 times a day. The average person eats 4 meals a day over the course of a week. 4 times 7, 28. So we're eating 28 times for every 3 to 5 times that we exercise. And we're eating 28 times for every 0 doctor's appointments. So I would argue, which one do you think has the biggest impact on your health outcomes? Your doctor visit, your training, or your nutrition? Probably your nutrition, because it's that constant input. And here's what we know. We know what's hurting us. The world around us is not set up for success, because if you ate what was considered a typical American diet, you probably wouldn't function at your job very well. And over the course of your career, you'd probably have a hard time getting up in the fire engine, because the environment around us is not setting us up for success. So what do we default to? Well, we default to what's easy, because we're busy. Shift is busy, life is busy. We've got 3 kids, we're running all over town. So even when he's not on shift, what's easy? How many of you flew in yesterday? I imagine all of you probably didn't fly in today. Where did you guys eat last night? Oh gosh, don't call on me. Anybody want to offer it up? I'm not going to make fun of you, I promise. Yes, where did you eat? A little Mexican joint. Oh, sweet, we were there too. What did you order? A taco that maybe had enough protein to fit 2 grams. Okay, so maybe 2 fingers of tacos or of meat, yeah. Okay. Anything else? Chips and salsa. Okay. That sounds pretty, that's about what we had. Yeah, maybe a little guacamole on the side. If you think about, if you go to a typical restaurant, let's just say like an Italian restaurant, because I love pasta. What do you usually see on that plate or in that meal that they bring you? What do you usually start with? Bread. Okay, so they put bread on the table. Maybe it's got some oil that you dip it in or some sauce. If you're like me, Alfredo sauce. Okay, so you got bread. What else comes with it? Say that one more time. Okay, olive oil, yeah, to dip it in. Does it normally come with a salad, or do you have to ask for a salad? Sometimes it comes with a salad, okay. And you're at an Italian restaurant, so what else are you gonna see there? Pasta, right? And is it just a little portion on your plate, or is it pretty much the whole table with the pasta? Yeah, so we've got a lot of pasta. The portion size is really big. And then anything else? Think about what you order. Cheese, okay. So I like my go-to thing at an Italian restaurant, if we're really being honest, it's chicken Alfredo. So I've got a little bit of chicken in with my pasta. I've got lots of Alfredo sauce, and I have to actively ask, can you put some vegetables in that so I don't feel quite so guilty about this? And then you have a salad on the side. And what I'm trying to get at is, if you want to have healthy stuff, you have to go and seek it, because the environment around you doesn't naturally make it easy for you. We were flying over here on the airplane. You know, what do they offer you for snacks? There's granola bars, there's cookies, there's lots of sodas and drinks. I was surprised. Shout out to Delta Airlines. They were offering almonds. I was impressed with that. But the default is not to support you. So we have to really put some intention behind it. And by recognizing that food is not, being hungry is not an emergency, it allows you just a brief moment to go, okay, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? And of my options, what would be the best choice for me? That sounds good, that I'll actually eat. So of course the question is, okay, this sounds great in theory, Lisa. Just tell me what to eat. What am I supposed to eat? Well, I love that you guys are here today, because that means that you're invested in your own health, and you're also invested in the health of the people in your department, your brothers and sisters, and probably even your family, right? I'm not sure if we have some support staff in the audience as well. Anybody done a Google search? How to eat, what to diet, or what diet should I follow? There's like a bajillion. That's a real number. There's so many options. And I like to refer to this as infobesity. There's so much information, there's an overabundance of information that it just is overwhelming. So again, I want to emphasize that there's not one right way to eat. So in the conference today, or not today, this week, there's a doctor that's going to talk about time-restricted eating, intermittent fasting. That is a great approach. There's a lot of new research about keto. That is a great approach. There's a lot of research, especially in the fire service, about the Mediterranean diet. There's a lot, that's a great approach. Vegan, vegetarian is a great approach. Again, I can talk with you as an individual and help you understand what might be the best option for you, but to look out at the audience and say, everybody should eat this one way is really difficult. And we'll talk about a little more the nuances, the specifics of why, but just know, again, getting back to those foundational things, what can we cling to that are really going to help us? So it starts with this: whole, real food. Whole, real food. Pretty simple, right? I like to use the term, it came from the ground, or it had a mother. Or a nicer way to say this, it's from plants, or it's made from plants, or it's from animals, or is made from animals. Okay, that's what we start with. Whole, real food. Pretty simple, right? This is not rocket science. I hope you weren't coming for a biochemistry lesson, because that's not what we're getting today. We're getting real life stuff. So what does this look like? Well, it looks like this. What I want to emphasize here is quality first before quantity. So one of my favorite meals, even to this day, I love a good burger. I love a good burger. And growing up, maybe once every couple months, my parents would make burgers and fries and milkshakes. And it was like, it's still nostalgic to me. But I remember my dad chopping up, peppers and onions and mushrooms and putting it in the burger and seasoning it up. Like he was old school, where you put a hole in the middle of the burger before you cook it on the grill, right? And then my parents would chop up the potatoes, and my mom had this old school fryer, and we would fry potatoes and turn them into French fries. And then my dad's famous fresh banana milkshakes, And it was like the vanilla bean ice cream, the really good stuff, and it had fresh bananas in it. But the point here is, dinner was not made in 5 minutes. Dinner took an hour to make. And so by the time you're done with a burger, you're feeling pretty good. There's no more burgers left over, right? Because there's enough for everyone, and that's it. And then it was real potatoes. Shout out to Idaho, that's where we're from. Real potatoes that were turned into fries. And then a real milkshake with real ingredients. So I'm not here to demonize certain foods, but to challenge you to just elevate the quality of what you're currently eating. If that's your only takeaway, that, you know what, I love chocolate chip cookies. Okay, make your own chocolate chip cookies instead of, buying a whole container of Chips Ahoy and eating two rows in the course of 10 minutes. Because then you can control what goes in that, first and foremost. And second, like if you're gonna take the time to make world famous peanut butter chocolate chip cookies like my husband does, like you're not gonna make them every night because that's a lot of work. And so by nature, it kind of limits the quantity that you consume. So how does this change some of this highly palatable food? That tends to be where we get stuck. Because if you ask anyone, what's your trouble? A lot of that you guys responded was sugar, was junk food, or what we would call junk food. So if you can elevate the ingredients that are in some of those things that are your triggers, maybe it'll change how you interact with that. And then there's a lot of psychological stuff that goes along with food, like, oh, you know what? I had some chips this afternoon. Oh, screw it. I'm gonna go ahead and eat everything today. I've already ruined my diet today. I might as well eat everything. Well, it's okay that you had some chips this afternoon, but let's slow down a little bit. Let's be a little more intentional, and let's take the guilt away from eating that, because at every single moment, you have an option to choose something different, okay? Have you guys heard of this term, food is fuel? Yes, food is fuel, right? Well, I'm not even gonna pretend that I know a single thing about cars, but I know that in order to make my car go and make it go well, I need more than gas. It needs oil and then some other things that I don't know where it's located. But it's more than just gas. That's what I have him for. Lisa, put air in your tires. Oh, okay, I'll remember. I don't ever remember. So I'm here to say that your car needs more than just fuel to function well, and so do you. You need more than just fuel. But the food that you eat is actually more than just fuel. There's so many nutrients that are in the food that we eat that impact all of the processes that happen in our body. So, there's a lot of, you guys remember like 10th grade biology and mitochondria, the little powerhouses in your cells? Well, the food that you eat impacts the mitochondria in your cells, which gives you energy. The food you eat impacts the way that your body creates and processes hormones so that you function well, that the way that your body is able to create energy. So the food that you eat is more than just fuel to make your body go. It impacts everything from top down, outside in. Everything in between is impacted by food. So if we're going to talk about elevating our game, so I hope that you're seeing as we talk through this that it's more than just this abstract idea of eating better. What does that mean? What does that really mean? So we get to dive into more of the details, which is what we're going to talk about next. So what I find is a lot of people get tripped up on what they think is really important. So, I teach at in our area, there's quite a few departments, and I teach a lot at the recruit classes, trying to set those guys up for success because Recruit Academy is really hard, and everybody loses weight during Recruit Academy. Some it's a good thing, some it's like, oh, buddy, gotta eat some more. But I hear a lot like, hey, Lisa, I really wanna pack on some weight. I started taking creatine, how much should I be taking? Should I do it every day? And that's great to consider, but there's a lot of layers below that you got to handle before you can say, yeah, creatine is what will really put you over the edge. So there's this principle out there the Pareto principle. Have you guys heard of this, the 80-20 rule? That if you look at what you're doing, so either in business, or I imagine if you guys did a sample poll of your calls, that if you listed out all the calls that you respond to, there's about 20% on that list that make up 80% of the calls that you respond to. So types of calls versus the volume. So this principle is out there in the world, and it was first designed around economics, but I would say it also applies to nutrition. So what is the 20% of behaviors or strategies or styles of eating that you can focus on that will give you 80% of the results that you're working for, that you want to see in your life? What tends to happen is people focus on the wrong end of the pyramid. This stuff up here, that it might feel like, oh, this is taking up a lot of my mind space, calculating my macros and thinking about meal timing and all of this stuff. And really that will only push you up 20%. So we're gonna focus on what that 80% really is. So we're gonna reverse engineer this. So at the top, this is where people sometimes get hung up, macro splits. What should my protein and carbs and fat ratio? Have you guys heard of this before, macros? Okay, good. I just wanna make sure that I'm not talking about a foreign concept. Then, quality choices or quantity of food. Oh, Lisa, what should I be eating for dinner? What should I eat for breakfast every day? What should my lunch look like? What should I pack for snacks? Well, it's really up to you. So if we focus on these lower rungs, first and foremost, starting with lifestyle choices and eating behaviors, that's where you will get the most bang for your buck, because anyone in this room not been on a diet before? We got one person, maybe two. Okay. So the thing about diet, going on a formal diet, is that they give you all of these things that you have to do. And then by day 4, day 5, all you can focus on is the end of your diet. Oh my gosh, I've got 28 days left, I'm doing a Whole30. Or, oh my gosh, I'm doing this 6-week challenge, I can't wait to not eat grilled tilapia. Because the change is really hard, and we throw a lot of things at the change. And so we think, if I do all of the things, then it's gonna fix me. But I'm here to ask, how many of you have ever had to re-landscape your yard or change the landscape in your yard? Or maybe, you or your spouse or your partner's like, hey, we're gonna redecorate this room. So when we think about change, only in nutrition do we say, I'm gonna take everything and I'm gonna remove it, and then I'm gonna try something different. But if we think about re-landscaping our yard or changing our wardrobe or redecorating our house, we start small. We look at what it is that we want to change, and we say, okay, what do I have? What is working well for me? What's not working well? And where do I want to go? And how do I slowly get there? It's only in extreme circumstances do you say, okay, I'm literally ripping this yard out to the dirt because there's nothing salvageable here, and we're going to start over. Or I hate everything, nothing in my closet fits. Maybe I'm not talking to the right audience here. Nothing in my closet fits. I'm going to take out everything, including all my underwear, like none of it, and we're going to start from scratch. Or I hate everything in this room. We're going to rip everything out and pull out all the carpet and everything and start from scratch. So we get this idea that in order to change our nutrition, we have to empty the fridge and empty the pantry or take all of this stuff out that we're like, I can't ever have any of this. So the reason that we're conditioned this way is because there's a $1 billion diet industry that's like, oh, you need this. You need to buy this meal system. You need to buy this product. You need to buy this supplement in order to be successful. Creatine is not bad. Creatine is actually really great, especially if you want to build muscle. But if you're simply not eating enough and eating consistently and fueling yourself well, there's not a whole lot that creatine is going to do. So let's focus on these lower rungs of how we get the most bang for our buck. So if you're a high performance athlete, you're like, okay, I'm training for the Olympics and I just need to shave 0.4 off of my time. These high-rung things, these things high on the pyramid will matter to you. Or I'm an Olympic weightlifter, and I need to cut weight for my meet. These higher rungs are going to matter to you. But if you're just an everyday person, it's like, I just want to eat healthy, I want to move well, and I want to feel okay when I look in the mirror. That top stuff isn't essential. So let's not get stuck there. So then how do we do this? How are you supposed to eat? Well, there are a lot of things that influence the way in which you eat. Okay, we're going to go over the 5 big ones. So the first one is health status. This, if I was able to, I would make this circle really big. This is really important because depending on your health status really will limit the amount of freedom of choice that you have. If you're on high blood pressure medication, I'm sorry, you should not be eating hot dogs or French fries. You got to manage your sodium intake, right? If you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, sorry, cake is not your friend. You have to manage that. If you have hormone dysfunction or thyroid dysfunction, I'm sorry, some of your options are limited. You have to protect your health first. The next one here is your body type. Yeah, we're going to talk about eating for your body type. And I'm going to pick on some of you guys. So just be ready. The next piece is food intolerances. Whether you like it or not, whether you acknowledge that there are food intolerances, there are. I bring this up because depending on how intolerant you are, like we talked about gluten intolerance, what that does is it creates inflammation in your body. Sometimes it's low-level inflammation. Sometimes it gets a little more exacerbated. And that inflammation, added to all of those health risks, exposures to toxins that we're talking about, it's just building that fire that is inside you that's causing problems. So you have to be aware of that. And if you don't know if you have a food intolerance, just ask somebody close to you after you eat something like, gosh, my belly's upset. Or, hey guys, we're gonna get ice cream. Oh gosh, here it comes, right? You know, you just might have to have a little check with yourself. So I know if I eat pizza, I look like I'm 5 months pregnant. Or a cinnamon roll. I remember it was after a bodybuilding competition, and if anybody's ever done that, there's like a 2-week time frame post-competition that you're like, I want to eat all the food. I was getting the mail from our neighbor, and I, like on stage, you're like 9-10% body fat, so it was 2 weeks after, so I was still really lean, visible striations in my shoulders. I go out to get the mail, and our neighbor guy is there. He's like, hey, Lisa, you've been busy this summer. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking jacked. I feel good. And he looks down at my belly and he's like, when do you do? What? I've been eating a lot of cinnamon rolls. I'm like, no, not that kind of busy, but thank you. Yeah, he doesn't really talk to me a whole lot anymore. I think he felt really embarrassed. So the next piece here is your insulin sensitivity. So if you are carb tolerant, you get to eat more carbs. If you're not, you don't get to. Some of this is in relation to body type. Some of this is in relation to food intolerances, and some of this is in relation to health status. It's part of this tangled web, which is why everything overlaps. And then the last piece is training style and frequency. So if you like to train like a power lifter, your nutrition is going to look different than someone that runs 50Ks. Okay, so your training style and frequency. And if you don't train at all, your nutrition is going to look differently than someone that trains 5 days a week. So what you're trying to do is find that money spot right in the middle where you maximize all 5 components here and you get to enjoy freedom. So it's not like you're stuck in this central place. It's kind of like a pendulum that you get to kind of hang around in there and explore. And then maybe sometimes you make some changes and you say, hey, I want to be a little bit leaner, or I want to put on a little bit more muscle, or gosh, I feel really light and it's hard for me to handle this hose, so I think I need some more weight behind me. I usually don't hear that a lot from men, but lady firefighters, that's a real thing. Something about that 150 weight limit that's like, yeah, now I'm feeling good. So what do we start with? Well, everybody's favorite. You gotta eat protein in every single meal. That is number one. And I put meal, but I also mean snack. So the typical person that's eating 4 times a day, you gotta have protein in every single one of those meals. Now, you'll see on the picture here that there's 2 palms. So I want you, put your pen or your phone down, and I want you to look at your palm. So fellas, I want you to look at 2 palms. Ladies, we're just going to look at 1. So when we talk about protein, I'm talking about a palm-sized serving of protein. Now, if I was to crack an egg, this is going to fill my 1 palm, but then if I turn sideways, it's definitely not that thick, right? So we need quantity here. So 1 or 2 palm-sized servings of protein in every meal. Well, what does that look like? This is where you get to decide what you want. It looks like a lot of things. Wild game, bison, beef, pork, poultry, seafood, fish, beans, legumes. There are vegetarian protein options. Yeah. The way that I think about this is not everything is equal. So if I do 4 ounces of beans versus 4 ounces of elk, because I'm from Idaho, the quantity of protein that's in that is going to vary. So we're humans and we like variety, so I would say vary your diet. Don't always eat grilled chicken breast. Don't always eat red meat every night for dinner. You need variety because there's some other components in there that are going to help you. The reason protein is so essential is because we have these building blocks in our cells. They're called amino acids, and I like to think of them like Legos. So you have Legos that are kind of floating around, and they build the structures of all of your cells. Normally we think protein like muscles. Well, it's actually every cell in your body. And if you're not getting enough protein, it's going to take those Lego pieces from other parts and build where it's essential. So if anybody's ever gone on a diet, or maybe you know someone that you work with or that is a family member that went on a really restricted diet, it's like, whoa, buddy, you lost a lot of weight, but there's like nothing left of you. Where did all of your muscle go? It's because they weren't eating enough protein, and so they took it from their muscles, which is not essential, and they kept it to protect the parts of our body that are essential. So no matter what, whether you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, or maintain weight, protein is essential. So I like to think of this, the density is based on the number of legs it has. So beans, legumes, not as dense protein. Then you've got fish, and you work your way up. So then we've got no legs, 2 legs, 4 legs. I don't know where octopus fit in, so don't ask me that. So, and then the more wild or free range it is, if you compare a free range chicken breast to a conventionally raised chicken breast, it's going to have a little more density. Okay, questions so far on this? Okay, how much protein? 1 or 2 palms. Good, you pass. So the next piece is vegetables, and in general, as Americans, we don't eat enough. We need nutrient-dense vegetables in every single meal. This is where all of the good stuff that keeps our body moving, the more than fuel part, that's where a lot of this comes from. So again, we have our palms. We take these everywhere. We don't take a scale with us everywhere. I've been that gal that's at the restaurants, like, I have to measure out my 4 ounces of grilled chicken. We don't do that. We always have our hands with us, so it's a really useful tool. So again, ladies, we're looking at 1 fist size. Fellas, you need 2 fists full of vegetables. Well, what kind of vegetables should I eat? It's really simple. Choose foods that add color to your plate. And yeah, this is probably a poor example because it's a whitish yellow cauliflower. But any opportunity that you can add color to your plate, do it. Do it. Now, I talk about protein and vegetables first because protein is essential for your body to function. Essential amino acids in order for your body to function. They're also essential nutrients that your body has to have in order to function, to keep you out of, we see people that eat enough, but they don't have enough nutrients. That's why things like rickets exist in the world. So we have to have protein, we have to have vegetables. The other thing we have to have in order to function is fat. There's essential fatty acids. So when we talk about fat, it's just 1 or 2 thumbs of fat. Now, the thing about fat is most of the fat that we eat is actually unintentional. So when we go back to that pasta meal that we were talking about, we've got our bread that usually has some butter on it, and now we're dipping it in the olive oil. And then we've got our platter of pasta, and if it's my pasta, it's Alfredo, which has a lot of fat in it. And then there's a chicken breast and maybe some vegetables that were sauteed in oil. And now I've got a salad with some dressing on the side, and maybe it's got some cheese on it. So there's lots of fat that is in the food that we're eating, but we're not aware of it. So we have to be intentional about it. So, well, what kind of fat, when we talk about healthy fat, what kind of fat should you be eating? Well, going back to that key concept that we talked about, it either came from a plant or it came from an animal. Okay, so plant oils like avocado oil, coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, okay, minimally processed. Egg yolks are a good fat option, which we'll see in the meatloaf today. Nuts, seeds, cheeses, if you tolerate them. Dairy, if you tolerate it. And then cold water fish is a really good source of good, healthy fats. Okay, so that's a quick review. Show me how much protein you need to eat. Okay, how much vegetables? Okay, how much fat? Okay, that's in every meal. So you think, ooh, like this is a substantial amount of food. This is good, because I like feeling hungry. I like feeling full. I don't want to feel hungry right after I eat something. Now this is the hard part, the next one. The next one, carbs, guess what? They're not essential for living. But gosh, they make life really good. So we have to make smart carb choices. And I intentionally picked a photo that has fruit in there, again, because this is where you get to deliver some high quality nutrients. But it doesn't just have to be fruit. This is where we get to add variety, and we get to be intentional about that. So if we think just like we have a range of protein, we have a bigger range of carbohydrates. So vegetables are at the bottom, okay, because they are a carb choice. Again, from Idaho, root vegetables in particular. I would say that they're not really a vegetable, so let's call them what they are. Let's call them a carb. And then again, beans and legumes. Oh, we saw that as protein, but they also have a lot of carbs in them too. Fruit, potatoes, rice, pastas, breads, sugary treats. Yeah, I put it on the screen. You get to eat it. Questions about this? Okay. So the real question about this, now that we know, okay, we've got a palm-sized serving of protein, fist of vegetables, a thumbful of fat, and a cupped handful of carbs in every meal that I'm eating. How does this look together? Because we don't eat food in isolation. I'm not just going to grab, a chicken thigh off the grill and eat it by itself. I might if I'm, hungry and waiting for everything else, but we typically eat meals. So what I'm challenging you to do today is to start paying attention to the meal that is in front of you, or the meal that you're making, or the meal that you're thinking about. So what's a common meal that you guys eat on shift? Anybody want to throw out an idea? Let's assume that you're having dinner together as a crew. What's a common crew dinner? Chicken Caesar salad. Okay, we're gonna pick on that one. When I was teaching the recruits, they'd heard about this tater tot casserole. I'm like, let's talk about tater tot casserole, okay? So chicken Caesar salad, I like it. So talk to me through, do you usually make it?
Yeah.
Okay, so talk me through what you usually put in it.
Romaine lettuce,
okay.
Chicken breast, and we make our own dressing.
Oh, okay, so you've got romaine lettuce, grilled chicken, you make your own dressing, and croutons. All right, let's dissect this according to what we have. So the grilled chicken is going to be the protein. Does everybody get their own protein source choice or section, or do you chop it up and throw it in there?
Usually buy a regular chicken breast.
Okay.
Pre-bought at the store.
Okay.
Olive oil, balsamic, Italian dressing in a Ziploc. Let it marinate for an hour or two. Barbecue both sides. Cut it.
Awesome. Okay, so there might be a little residual fat from the way that you're marinating it on that, right? So again, trying to bring intention to it. So you got your grilled chicken, and then your romaine lettuce. So now we're getting a good fist or two of vegetables. All right. The dressing. Tell me what that serves.
Okay, there's like 12 things. Try to remember.
It's okay. Just what of the ingredient of like the key components would that serve?
Oil, Parmesan cheese,
That's okay. So I hear some of that stuff is nominal, but it sounds like it's basically a fat source. Okay, so we've got a protein, we've got a vegetable, and we've got a fat source. And then you said Parmesan cheese? In the dressing. Okay, what are we missing? Oh, you have croutons. Okay, yes. Are we missing anything? It sounds like we have the essential components, but if we're trying to elevate our game a little bit and we're choosing, quality in with that quantity, what are some things that would be easy ways to maybe elevate that Caesar salad?
Reduce the olive oil, reduce the cheese.
Okay.
Try to find a replacement, which I'm not sure what we can.
Well, and I think what you probably get is a lot of resistance. Like, well, don't take it with that stuff. So maybe instead of thinking about what you can remove, here's your next strategy. Instead, think about what could you add that would maybe elevate the health component of that. What are some things you could add? Anybody have ideas for him?
Hard-boiled egg.
Hard-boiled eggs, okay, that'll give you some fat, but that'll give you a little more protein if you want hard-boiled eggs in your Caesar. You had an idea? Oh, sun-dried tomatoes. Yeah, you can just add more vegetables to it in general, right? Some chopped up peppers, maybe some cucumbers, some tomatoes, right? Add some color to it, but that sounds like can I come over for dinner? That sounds really good. Yes, yeah. Awesome. That sounds really good. I also want to point out that, food it's a very important part of our culture. Your culture in the firehouse, but also just like as a society. So when you're thinking about doing this, again, kind of thinking about not all the things that I can take out, but can I just add something to elevate this a little bit? If you're going to a barbecue, one of the things that I hear a lot of my clients talk about is like, gosh, I'm going to this barbecue and they're not gonna have anything that I can eat. Well, what if you add something to that social environment? Hey, can I just bring a big salad? Then at least you have something that you could snack on or eat. Or in the firehouse, Phil will talk about this more, like, oh gosh, we eat this tater tot casserole and it's so laden with, all this stuff that I know isn't really that good for me. Hey, fellas, do you mind if I throw together a quick salad? Like, take some ownership of this. What can you add? What can you add to this experience? What can you add to this environment in order to elevate the game as opposed to taking away? None of us like the good stuff taken away. All right, let's talk about body types. Okay, now normally I go around the audience and I kind of scope out my different body types. So I'm gonna do my best to pick on a couple guys. So would you stand up for me? Let's see. I'm actually going to get down and look around a little bit. Okay, would you stand up for me? And I'm going to have, oh gosh, don't make eye contact. She's going to judge me. Let's see. We've got lots of good options. I'm so judging you. Yes. I'm going to have you stand up for me. Okay. Could I have you guys just come right here? Tell me your name.
Steve.
Steve, where are you from?
Nashville, New Hampshire.
Oh, awesome. Very nice to meet you. Hi. Well, what's your name? Guy. Nice to meet you. Where are you from?
Ottawa, Canada.
Ottawa, Canada. Awesome.
Corey.
Corey, nice to meet you. Where are you from?
Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay, awesome. Go ahead and face the audience. All right, so we have 3 different body types up here, and I just want to preface this that most people are not one specific body type. They're a combination of different body types. So we've got, on here it's labeled I, V, and O, but how I know them best. So we've got what's considered an ectomorph. So this body type tends to have smaller frame bones. So sometimes they're shorter, sometimes they're taller, but if you put your middle finger and your thumb together, they'll actually touch or overlap. This body type tends to stay lean relatively easy by default. Like, I'm not thinking about it and I lost weight. So usually this body type, I hear from a lot of people, I just want to get stronger. I just want to be bigger. I want to gain some weight. This body type is also very well carb adapted. So it functions well on a higher carb diet, okay? Still good protein, still vegetables, still healthy fats, but a little bit more carbs. This body type is called an endomorph. So if you kind of think of like a sliding spectrum here, this would be the opposite end of the spectrum. This body type functions well with really strong power movements. So this body type is usually a powerhouse. So if you have to deadlift a 400-pound patient, you want them on the other end of that. Help me out. So this body type usually does not struggle adding muscle or adding mass. Usually this body type, one of the things that they're looking to do is maybe to trim a little bit of the body fat, be a little bit lighter. This body type is usually not carb adapted well. So this body type tends to do better on a lower carb diet, but then they get more fat. They get the good stuff. And then you have the body type that's in the middle. This is what we call a mesomorph. So how you tell this body type, their shoulders are a little bit wider than their waist versus this body type. If you look at the chest and the waist and the hips, it's usually pretty straight up and down. So this body type is kind of in the middle of the two. So depending on which direction this body type goes, it can either be a little bit more carb adapted or a little bit more fat adapted. But this body type can move relatively easy between those two. Like I can get strong or I can lose weight pretty easy. It depends. I just have to make some minor changes. You're nodding your head like, yeah, okay, all right, thank you guys. So knowing that we have a range of body types and where you might fit in there might be a little different. I'm gonna pick on Phil a little bit just because I can. So Phil is a mix between a mesomorph and an endomorph. So depending on whether he's paying attention to his diet or getting a little lax with his diet, he can get pretty lean, or he can put on a little extra body fat if he's not paying attention. So most people, I would say, are somewhere on that scale, and you just kind of have to figure that out. Most people are pretty good about figuring that out. And if you don't know, just ask your buddy, they'll tell you. So why does this matter? Because this is where we figure out how we put together food in a way that supports us. So what do I need? That's that essential question. So let's start with the ectomorph. So this is the long, leaner body type. This body type tends to function on a higher carb diet. So you'll see there's still lots of protein, 2 palm-sized servings of protein. There's still 2 fistfuls of vegetables. But you notice there's only 1 thumb of fat, and there's 3 cupped hands of carbs. Okay, you guys with me? So this body type tends to be more carb adapted. All right. The other end of the spectrum, the endomorph, still 2 palm-sized servings of protein, still 2 fistful of vegetables. But there, I can't see it. But you'll notice there's now 3 thumbfuls of fat and only 1 cupped hand of carbs. Okay, this would be a lower carb diet. And so maybe some of those sugary treats for this body type, they only save for post-workout, or if they've had a lot of drilling, or they've been, doing 3 hours of training, and their energy stores are low, then they might have a more dense carb. But in general, it's mostly vegetables and protein and fat. And then there's the mesomorph that's in the middle, and they have a good balance of everything. Still 2 palm-sized servings of protein, still 2 fistfuls of vegetables, 2 thumbs of fat, and 2 cupped handfuls of carbs. And this body type, depending on if they tend to be more endomorph, if you saw this, they might lean a little bit more on the fat side and a little bit less on the carbs. And then if they are more ectomorph, more long and lean, they might have a little bit more carbs. You guys with me so far? Okay, so let's talk about what this might look like in the firehouse. Because I imagine in your firehouse, not everyone looks exactly like you. Yeah? So when you put together your meal of chicken Caesar salad, so I hear there's a lot of fat in it, There's some good vegetables, plenty of protein, and croutons, really not a whole lot of carbs from croutons. So if you're an ectomorph, the long, lean body type, what would you add to that? I'm going to pick on you since I was picking on you before. So if chicken Caesar salad is on the menu for dinner tonight, what would you add to that to support you? Awesome. Yeah, have some fruit on the side. Easy fix, right? If you're an endomorph, do you need to add anything to this, to the chicken Caesar salad? Yes, no? Well, it sounds like between the dressing and well, maybe you add a little more Parmesan cheese on top. Lucky you. Or even, maybe some diced up avocado on top. If you're a mesomorph, would you add anything to the chicken Caesar salad? Would you add anything to the chicken Caesar salad? Spinach. You'd add some more spinach? Okay. Would you think, do you need more carbs? Do you need more fat? Or you think it would be good? Okay. More stuff to it, yeah. Okay, yeah, just to make sure that you kept your energy good, yeah. Yeah, and there's lots of variations. So I appreciate, there were a couple questions that came up as you guys are enjoying that I wanted to talk about. One is, what if you're at such a busy house that you can't really, you literally can't cook, or you're getting called out of the grocery store 5 times, like, what happened with Phil a couple weeks ago. So if you're going to a place, like his example was a barbecue place, there's nothing wrong with doing that if that's what you have to do in order to get some food in, because some is better than none. And I want to make sure that you hear that. Some is better than none. So if the option is, well, we're not going to eat anything, or we're going to eat something deemed unhealthy, well, eat something, because you have to function well. Like, you are the best tool that you have to do your job. So when you go into a place, because you're a patron and you're giving them money, that actually gives you control. So if there's a barbecue place you're going into, like, okay, I'd like some pulled pork, and, ask for your side of mashed potatoes, but maybe you don't eat the whole thing, or maybe you do, depending on your day. And maybe they have a vegetable that you could order on the side, some steamed broccoli or some green beans or something like that. But what my point is with all of this, and it segues into this next portion very nicely, is you do the best with what you can and what you have available. So you do the best with what you have and what you can. So kind of connecting back to, enjoying yourself, this idea of, having treats, having ice cream, having, homemade chocolate chip cookies, you can still enjoy those things, because really this is about progress, not perfection. There's no expectation that we are going to be perfect eaters. We're human, right? So we're working towards progress. And again, connecting back to what we talked before, that it's not about everything. It really is about that one thing that you can start doing now. And that one thing might be as simple as bringing food with you. I don't care what it is, but now at least you're prepared. Or that one thing is, I'm going to add some vegetables to, our crew dinner. Just one small habit that you can focus on. Because when we think about those big dial movers, what's going to get the most bang for your buck? I put slow down because sometimes it's counterintuitive, like, yeah, how am I going to slow down when I'm running 18 calls in a 24-hour period? Well, you're not always on shift. So when you're not on shift, this is something that Phil can talk about too. We've been trying to slow down when we eat as a family, because when he is on shift, it's like shovel as quickly as possible. And then he comes home and it's shovel as quickly as possible. And now I've got a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old that shovel as quickly as possible. And I'm looking at my 8-year-old son and I'm thinking, oh, Lord, help me. I've got 8 years to make you like somewhat okay to have a date in a restaurant where you're not pulling the plate and shoveling it into your mouth. Like, how is any girl's father gonna be like, yes, go on a date with this kid? Like, we're not Neanderthals. So trying to create some better habits at home when you have the luxury. So you do the best you can with what you have in the moment. The other thing that I want to point out here is pay attention. So in the eating process, sometimes we're in such a rush by choice or not by choice, that we forget to pay attention and check in with our bodies. So if you're paying attention, maybe you stop a little bit before you're stuffed. I think of it like, you're driving on a freeway and you're going so fast, you're hauling butt, that you blow past the exit that you were supposed to get off. Well, we do that with food a lot. So if you just slow down and you pay attention, you're like, you know what, actually I'm full, this is good. Or I love these chocolate chip cookies. I just ate 3, they taste really good. Do I need to eat 4, 5, and 6? Do I? I'm actually okay. Maybe, yes I do. But just pay attention.
It is.
It's interesting because your taste buds actually change through the eating process. What tasted really good in your first 3 bites doesn't actually taste as good by the time you're, finishing the bowl. Sometimes it does. And then the other piece, again, it comes back to that quantity and quality piece, is if you can stop before you're stuffed, particularly if you're like, hey, I want there to be a little less of me, so maybe I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight, stopping before you're super full is a good strategy. So do you have any other things that have helped you?
One thing that's helped me is when I was at Station 5, that's our downtown station. It's a really busy station. I was my son. I was piling it in and coming home and just being like, hey, when you see this, will you help me remind me just to chill at home? Because I just get in the habit of that go, 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 go mentality. And so bringing her on board, this is like 2008 or something like that. Like, it's just like, hey, just educating my wife at home, just those habits. I tend to carry them home from the firehouse, and this urgency, like, I better eat all of this or it'll be cold and gone by the time I get back. There's always plenty of food. There's an abundance of food. Like, we're not going to starve on duty. So just chill out, especially when you get home, and have your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend ask for assistance just to check yourself when you come in that door, to bring it down so you're not your worst enemy. Yeah.
Well, it connects back to what we were talking about just as you guys were getting your food is, going back to that idea that food is social, it's also an opportunity for connection. So if you're trying to make things a little different, facilitating a conversation and being able to communicate, you were joking about, you come home and your wife doesn't understand how busy you were on shift. Have you guys heard of this book, Extreme Ownership? Jocko Willink, raise your hand. Okay, life changer. If you haven't read it, it is a must read, absolutely. It's transformed the way that we do life together as parents, as partners, but then also, being out in the world as formal and informal leaders. Yes. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. It's they're former Navy SEAL commanders, so it's Extreme Ownership, How Navy SEALs Lead and Win. And so applying that idea of extreme ownership, if you're seeing an opportunity that you want to be different, whether it's in relation with your partner or your spouse, take some extreme ownership of that and say, okay, how can I communicate better so that we can work towards this goal? How can I bring you on board? If going back to the environment around us is kind of stacked against us, and then if your partnerships are also stacked against you, you're fighting kind of a losing battle. So bringing people on board to help you and asking for help and supporting you can really give you some headway into making progress. Yes?
Great book. Highly recommend you download it because they narrate it.
Yes.
You've ever heard Jocko talk?
Oh, yes.
Piercing.
You get the impact of
Totally.
conversations.
Yes.
Podcasts.
When I say read books, that's really what we do. We listen to books. Yes, upload. It is hands down probably, it's like we had our kids read the Way of the Warrior kid books. It's life-changing. I think every organization at some point should do a book study on it. So, yeah.
We're actually taking that book and implementing it in our officer development program. So it's a fantastic book. We're not here to sell a book.
No.
Yeah, anyways, let's move on.
Yeah, so these are just some easy strategies. And if you go, the IAFF built a website where we will be putting out lots more nutrition information for you, for your crews, also for your families if they need a resource this is where you will find it. It's just IAFF.org/nutrition. So what you'll see over the next year, so I've spent the last year working with Courtney and the health and safety team at the IAFF to really put some framework around what this firefighter nutrition program should be. Should we talk about, paleo or keto? And really the idea is sticking to the basics. There's no need to get super high level because people tend to get lost in the weeds. So just like in your job, you need to be really good at the basics in order to function well. So nutrition is no different. So some of the basics, we've put these graphics out there. You can download them, you can print them, you can put them on the fridge at home, you can put them on the fridge at your station. So number one, on shift, you need to come prepared. Number two, when you are having crew dinner, just think about, how do I build a better plate? You guys remember, you've got your hands with you, so you know the appropriate portion size. And then if you're struggling to add variety, the idea is not what can I take out, but what can I add in order to elevate this game a little bit. So we've got this for on shift. And again, you can download these at IAFF.org/nutrition. And then we've got these for off duty. So plan ahead. If you fail to plan, then plan to fail, right? Grocery shopping, do you need to have the food on hand in order for you to be successful at home? And are there things that you can pack to take with you to the station? And the last strategy, the night before, this is one thing that we've definitely tag teamed a lot lately, that I feel like this is one way that I can show support to him, is the night before, we overcook dinner. We actually overcook dinner a lot because we like leftovers. So we're overcooking grilled chicken thighs, or we're overcooking meatballs so that he has food that he can take with him to the station. And that is just a very real, applicable strategy. If you're already cooking it, why not make a little bit more so you've got extra? So those are simple things. And again, this is the website, IAFF.org. You'll see a lot of this in the coming year. We'll be all over social media, just trying to get the word out so that you don't feel like you're fighting this battle by yourself. We're really trying to create this culture change from all levels to help you guys be successful. If you need to connect with me, you can also go to my website, lisadesilet.com. I'm on social media at Lisa Desilet, or you can shoot me an email.